Welcome to the audiobook of the 48 Laws of Power. Law 3, Conceal Your Intentions. Part 1, Use decoyed objects of desire and dread. Herrings to throw people off the scent. If at any point in the deception you practice people have the slightest suspicion as to your intentions, all is lost. Do not give them the chance to sense what you are up to. Throw them off the scent by dragging red herrings across the path. Use false sincerity. Send ambiguous signals, set up misleading objects of desire. Unable to distinguish the genuine from the false, they cannot pick out your real goal. Transgression of the law. Over several weeks, Ninon L'Enclos, the most infamous courtesan of 17th century France, listened patiently as the Marquis de Sévigné explained his struggles in pursuing a beautiful but difficult young countess. Ninon was 62 at the time, and more than experienced in matters of love. The Marquis was a lad of 22, handsome, dashing, but hopelessly inexperienced in romance. At first Ninon was amused to bear the Marquis talk about his mistakes. But finally she had had enough. Unable to bear ineptitude in any realm, least of all in seducing the woman, she decided to take the young man under her wing. First, he had to understand that this was war, and that the beautiful countess was a citadel to which he had to lay siege as carefully as any general. Every step had to be planned and executed with the utmost attention to detail and nuance. Instructing the Marquis to start over, Ninon told him to approach the countess with a bit of distance, an air of nonchalance. The next time the two were alone together, she said, he would confide in the countess as would a friend but not a potential lover. This was to throw her off the scent. The countess was no longer to take his interest in her for granted. Perhaps he was only interested in friendship. Ninon planned ahead. Once the countess was confused, it would be time to make her jealous. At the next encounter, at a major fete in Paris, the Marquis would show up with a beautiful young woman at his side. This beautiful young woman had equally beautiful friends, so that wherever the countess would now see the Marquis, he would be surrounded by the most stunning young women in Paris. Not only would Augustus be seething with jealousy, she would come to see the Marquis as someone who was desired by others. It was hard for Ninon to make the Marquis understand, but she patiently explained that a woman who is interested in a man wants to see that other women are interested in him, too. Not only does that give him instant value, it makes it all the more satisfying to snatch him from their clutches. Once the countess was jealous but intrigued, it would be time to beguile her. On Ninon's instructions, the Marquis would fail to show up at AF fairs where the countess expected to see him. Then, suddenly, he would appear at salons he had never frequented before, but that the countess attended often. She would be unable to predict his moves. All of this would push her into the state of emotional confusion that is a prerequisite for successful seduction. These moves were executed, and took several weeks. Ninon monitored the Marquis's progress. Through her network of spies, she heard how the countess would laugh a little harder at his witticisms, listen more closely to his stories. She heard that the countess was suddenly asking questions about him. Her friends told her that at social affairs the countess would often look up at the Marquis, following his steps. Ninon felt certain that the young woman was falling under his spell. It was a matter of weeks now, maybe a month or two. But if all went smoothly, the citadel would fall. A few days later the Marquis was at the countess's home. They were talking. Suddenly he was a different man, this time acting on his own impulse, rather than following Ninon's instructions. He took the countess's hands and told her he was in love with her. The young woman seemed confused, a reaction he did not expect. She became polite, then excused herself. For the rest of the evening she avoided his eyes, was not there to say good night to him. The next few times he visited he was told she was not at home. When she finally admitted him again, the two felt awkward and uncomfortable with each other. The spell was broken. The interpretation of Law 3 is that you should keep your intentions hidden from others, even those you trust. This will give you a strategic advantage and keep your opponents off balance. There are several reasons why it is important to conceal your intentions. It prevents others from preparing a defense. If your opponents know what you are planning, they will have time to develop a strategy to counter you. It prevents others from thwarting your plans. If your opponents know what you are planning, they may try to sabotage your efforts or even steal your ideas. It gives you an element of surprise. If your opponents cannot predict what you are going to do, they will be more likely to make mistakes. It shows strength and power. When others cannot predict your next move, they are more likely to fear and respect you. Of course, there is a difference between concealing your intentions and being deceitful. You should not lie or cheat to others, but you should be strategic about how you communicate your plans. Here are some tips for concealing your intentions. Be vague and ambiguous in your speech and actions. Don't give away too much information, and be careful not to make promises that you cannot keep. Use decoys and red herrings to misdirect your opponents. Let them think that you are interested in something that you are not, or that you are going to do something that you are not. Create a smokescreen of activity to obscure your real goals. Keep your opponents busy with minor tasks and distractions, so that they don't have time to focus on what you are really up to. Be unpredictable and keep your opponents guessing. Don't follow a set pattern of behavior, and be willing to change your plans at the last minute. Here are some examples of how Law 3 can be used in practice. A business executive may keep secret their plans to launch a new product in order to prevent their competitors from copying them. A politician may conceal their true stance on an issue until they are sure of the public opinion. A military commander may keep their plans for an attack hidden from their enemy until the last minute. Law 3 is a powerful tool that can be used to achieve your goals, but it is important to use it wisely. If you are caught deceiving others, you will lose their trust and credibility. The observance of Law 3, Part 1, is to use decoys and red herrings to misdirect your opponents. This means creating false leads and distractions to keep them from guessing what you are really up to. There are many ways to use decoys and red herrings. For example, you could spread rumors and misinformation. This could involve planting false information in the media or simply telling people things that you know are not true. Create fake documents or evidence. This could involve forging documents or creating false social media accounts. Take actions that suggest you are interested in something different from what you are actually interested in. This could involve meeting with certain people or visiting certain places. Make promises that you have no intention of keeping. This could involve promising to support someone's candidacy or to invest in a business. The goal of using decoys and red herrings is to create a smokescreen that will obscure your real intentions. By keeping your opponents guessing, you will be able to maintain an element of surprise and gain a strategic advantage. Here are some examples of how the observance of Law 3, Part 1 has been used in the past. During World War II, the Allies used a variety of decoys and red herrings to deceive the Germans about the location of their planned invasion of Normandy. For example, they built fake landing craft and aircraft, and they sent out false radio transmissions. In business, companies often use decoys and red herrings to prevent their competitors from learning about their new products or strategies. For example, a company might file a patent for a fake product or spread rumors about a new product that they are not actually planning to release. In politics, candidates often use decoys and red herrings to mislead their opponents and the public about their true positions on issues. For example, a candidate might make a promise that they have no intention of keeping, or they might spread misinformation about their opponent's record. It is important to note that the observance of Law 3, Part 1 should not be used to deceive or manipulate others for personal gain. Instead, it should be used to gain a strategic advantage in a competitive situation. The keys to power from Law 3, Part 1 are: misdirection. By using decoys and red herrings, you can keep your opponents guessing and maintain an element of surprise. This will give you a strategic advantage and allow you to achieve your goals. Unpredictability. When your opponents cannot predict what you are going to do, they are more likely to make mistakes and be less effective in countering your plans. By being unpredictable, you can gain a significant advantage over your opponents. Control. When you control the flow of information, you control the situation. By using decoys and red herrings, you can control what information your opponents have access to and how they interpret it. This will give you a significant advantage in any competitive situation. Here are some tips for using Law 3, Part 1 to gain power. Be strategic about how you use decoys and red herrings. Don't just throw them out there randomly. Think carefully about what information you want your opponents to have and how you can use that information to your advantage. Be creative and imaginative. There are no rules when it comes to using decoys and red herrings. The more creative and imaginative you are, the more effective they will be. Be careful not to overdo it. If you use too many decoys and red herrings, your opponents will start to suspect that you are up to something. Use them sparingly and effectively. It is important to note that Law 3, Part 1 should not be used to deceive or manipulate others for personal gain. Instead, it should be used to gain a strategic advantage in a competitive situation. When used wisely and ethically, Law 3, Part 1 can be a powerful tool for achieving your goals and gaining power. For such content, subscribe the channel.